Today we're diving into the Star Wars universe with Obi-Wan Kenobi versus Kylo Ren and Rey. Who comes out on top? Well, let's find out. Obi-Wan Kenobi was a Jedi Knight who was instructed by Qui-Gon Jinn, and he himself taught Anakin Skywalker. Both Kenobi and Anakin fought in the Clone Wars, which led to Anakin turning to the dark side and betraying the Order. Obi-Wan hid on the planet Tatooine, where he watched over Anakin's son Luke, whom he began training to be a Jedi like his father once was. So today we're going to be using Obi-Wan Kenobi from episode 3, just to clarify. Obi-Wan Kenobi is a very skilled fighter, and one of the greatest lightsaber duelists of all time. In contrast to other fighting styles, Obi-Wan usually fought from a defensive stance, but he would use more aggressive attacks when pressed. He is an expert in Form 3 lightsaber fighting, otherwise known as Surisu. It was created to counter blaster fire, and utilizes tight moves, subtle dodges, efficient parries, and maximizes defensive coverage. It was designed to minimize the body's exposure, which makes the fighting style perfect against blasters and lightsabers, single enemies, and multiple opponents. Obi-Wan has been able to defeat Darth Maul, General Grievous, and Anakin Skywalker, and hold his own against Count Dooku and Darth Maul and Savage Opress at the same time. Though Obi-Wan focused largely on lightsaber combat, he's also very skilled at using the Force. He's exceptional at using a Force push, and is able to send General Grievous flying, defeat a lot of droids with a Force push, and match Anakin Skywalker during the duel on Mustafar. He's also able to use the Force to augment his leaping ability and levitate or crush objects. And then in the coin of Kylo Ren and Rey. The son of Han Solo and Leia Organa, Kylo Ren was once a Jedi apprentice, but was drawn to the dark side of the Force and became the leader of the First Order. Being the heir to the Skywalker bloodline, Ben Solo was filled with raw, untamed potential that frightened Luke Skywalker and drew the attention of Supreme Leader Snoke. After being corrupted by the dark side, Kylo desired to become just as powerful as his grandfather Darth Vader. And while Kylo Ren isn't as powerful as Vader, he is still very powerful in both the Force and lightsaber combat, with the dark side flowing through him. He's exceptional at using the Force for telekinetic attacks. He sent Rey flying up against a tree, pulled a man up by the neck, and was even able to pull a house down around Luke Skywalker. He's also proficient at using telekinetic halts in a fight, which is where he can freeze a target and immobilize them, or even hold a blaster bolt in mid-air for over a minute. Using his teachings from both the light side and the dark side of the Force, Kylo Ren is skilled in lightsaber combat. After going to the dark side, Kylo was tasked with eliminating any remnants of the Jedi, and thus destroyed Luke Skywalker's new generation of Jedi and earned himself the name the Jedi Killer among the First Order. However, it's actually debatable just how skilled Kylo truly is with a lightsaber, as he lost to Rey in their first fight, and that was literally the second time that she had ever held a lightsaber before, and Luke Skywalker just simply embarrassed him during their fight. And even though he beat Finn was able to injure him, and that kid couldn't even kill a stormtrooper. He's also not very skilled at constructing a blade, seen by his rather crude and unstable weapon. Now we also have Rey. Rey was left on Jakku by her parents, but she left and joined the Resistance, and ended up becoming one of the few remaining Jedis in the galaxy. Growing up on Jakku, Rey was forced to learn how to fight and survive, or she would surely starve or be killed by thieves or other scavengers. The need to survive, and also simply being a scavenger, made sure that Rey stayed in peak physical condition, and expertly learned how to wield her quarterstaff against any opponent. Despite her lack of any real formal training, Rey has proved herself to be a natural in lightsaber combat. During her first fight with Kylo Ren, she was actually able to successfully repel all of his attacks, and even beat him because of his imbalance. Later on though, she proved that she's not as seasoned or versatile as Kylo Ren, and proved Luke Skywalker right when he said that Ren was far more powerful than her. She had a whole lot of difficulty fighting against Snoke's Praetorian Guard, was even injured by one of them in the fight. Now Rey is exceptionally gifted with the Force, and is definitely one of the most powerful Force users just in terms of raw power. With no training whatsoever, she was able to resist Kylo Ren's attempts to probe her mind, and even push back to probe his mind. quickly employ a mind trick on a stormtrooper and use telekinesis to make a lightsaber fly past Ren and into her hand. Then, after a brief training from Luke Skywalker on Ahch-To, she was able to lift and move several massive boulders with essentially no effort whatsoever. The kid is a natural. So who wins? Well, let's break it down. Now, there are a couple things that we need to look at here. Force power, lightsaber fighting skill, then actual combat experience, and teamwork. Now, looking at everyone here, I'd have to say that Rey is the most powerful Force user. I mean, the girl essentially has no training, and was able to overpower Kylo Ren on her very first try, and easily move all these massive boulders when it took Luke a long time to learn how to move his X-Wing, and George Lucas refers to him as the most powerful Jedi ever. Kylo also has some real Force skill too, as he's actually had training, and can do things that we'd never seen Obi-Wan do, like completely freeze people in place. However, the problem with all this is that Rey and Kylo Ren rarely ever use the Force in an actual fight, besides grabbing for lightsabers. Kylo froze Poe and Rey in the first movie, but never used it in a lightsaber battle, and then Rey used the Force in her fight against Kylo in Force Awakens, but it's not really clear what the Force did here. She also had to remind herself that she had the ability to even use the Force. But on the other hand, even though Obi-Wan isn't as powerful in the Force as Rey in terms of raw power, he uses it a whole lot more in a fight, and actually knows what he's doing. I mean, I can think of countless times, whether in the movies or the TV show, where Obi-Wan used the Force in a lightsaber battle, whether it be a Force push or throwing people or dropping things or whatever. All this also forced him to learn to be a lot more aware of his surroundings, because he's constantly looking for objects around him that he can use as a weapon to take out enemies. Obi-Wan is also a more skilled fighter than either one of these two. I mean, for starters, he was able to hold his own or defeat Darth Maul, Count Dooku, and General Grievous. All of these people had killed legit Jedi Masters before, not the Jedi Padawans that Kylo Ren took down. And then look at his fight with Anakin on Mustafar. At this moment, Anakin was considered to be the greatest duelist in the Jedi Order, so that means that Obi-Wan was at least comparable, if not actually surpassed him in terms of skill. And then just the pacing and speed of the fight is so much faster than anything we've seen Kylo and Rey do. I mean, they would essentially be blindsided if Obi-Wan started fighting against them with that kind of speed. Now, Kylo does have some lightsaber skill and training from Luke Skywalker, although how much is unclear. But while he's able to hold his own in a fight, he fights like a man possessed. On the other hand, Obi-Wan keeps his cool in every single fight he's in, regardless of the odds stacked against him, and this allows him to not make mistakes and take advantage of any openings his opponent gives him. And since Kylo Ren fights with such rage and aggression, he's bound to leave himself open to where the more level-headed Obi-Wan can exploit him. And then Rey has really no formal training whatsoever, and her fight against Kylo Ren and the Praetorian Guard, it's more like she's just fighting to survive. There are times where she's just flailing her lightsaber around, and while she's got some natural skill, Obi-Wan is definitely more skilled and can easily overwhelm her. However, the interesting thing about this fight is that it's a 2-on-1 fight. Could Obi-Wan take down Kylo and Rey when they're both coming at him? Clearly they have some level of chemistry and teamwork, like when Rey threw her lightsaber to Kylo so that he could take down a guard. Well, for that, I'd like to point you to when Obi-Wan fought against both Darth Maul and Savage Opress in the Clone Wars. Darth Maul is definitely a more skilled fighter than either of these two, as he was able to kill Jedi Master Qui-Gon Jinn, and you could argue that Savage Opress is the better fighter too. He's at least equal to the two of them with his skill and just sheer physical might. They're also brothers, so they have much more chemistry than Kylo Ren and Rey. But yet Obi-Wan is able to hold his own. You see, Obi-Wan fights in the fighting style of Surisu. This style focuses on maximizing defensive coverage, making it ideal when battling against multiple opponents. At the end of the day, Obi-Wan Kenobi is just too skilled and experienced of a fighter, both in terms of force use and lightsaber fighting, and he's going to be able to take down Rey and Kylo Ren. Obi-Wan Kenobi wins. But what do y'all think? I would love to hear your thoughts Sound off in the comments down below. Also, be sure to subscribe. More videos just this one every single day, and I'll see you next time.